Most people with balconies think they can't grow real food. Maybe some herbs, a tomato plant if they're ambitious. But actual production, feeding yourself from a balcony, that's not possible. Except it is, and the math is better than you think. A typical apartment balcony is about 4 feet by 8 feet, 32 square feet. That's supposedly not enough space to grow anything meaningful. But with the right system, that same 32 square feet can produce 50 to 80 pounds of vegetables in a single growing season. Now, 50 to 80 pounds is the realistic range. You'll hit the higher end with 6+ hours of direct sun, consistent watering, and a long growing season. Most people starting out get 40 to 60 pounds their first year, but that's still replacing $200 to $400 in grocery produce from the space the size of a couch. Think about it. Organic cherry tomatoes at the store run $4 to $6 per pound. Fresh basil is $5 for a tiny plastic container. Lettuce mix is $6 a bag. That adds up to a couple $100 in produce you're not buying anymore because you're growing it on your balcony. I'm going to show you exactly how that works. Not theory, the actual system that turns a small balcony into a productive food source. This isn't about having a green thumb. It's about understanding 3 things: container setup, succession planting, and crop selection. Get those right and a balcony outperforms most backyard gardens per square foot. Here's what most people get wrong. They think horizontally. They put a few pots on the floor, maybe a planter box on the railing, and call it done. That's using maybe 20% of available space. The system that actually works uses all 3 dimensions: floor space, railing space, and vertical wall space, and it treats the balcony like a production system, not a decoration project. Let me break down how 50 to 80 pounds happens, starting with containers. And before you think this is expensive, I found most of my buckets or grow bags on Facebook Marketplace for next to nothing. People sell gardening stuff in the fall when they're cleaning up. You can get grow bags, buckets, and pots for a fraction of retail if you're patient. If you don't have a car and can't drive around to pick stuff up, you can buy grow bags at Walmart or Amazon for around $2 per bag. You need the right containers matched to the right crops, specific sizes based on root depth and what actually produces. 5-gallon buckets are your foundation for tomatoes and peppers. You can get food-grade buckets at hardware stores for $3 to $5 each, or ask restaurants and bakeries because they throw away frosting buckets constantly. I've gotten dozens of free buckets just by asking. Drill 6 1/4-inch drainage holes in the bottom. Space them evenly. No drainage means root rot and your plant dies in a week. Fill buckets with potting mix, not garden soil. Garden soil compacts in containers and suffocates roots. Potting mix is lighter, drains better, and actually works. Brands like Miracle Grow or Fox Farm work fine. A 5-gallon bucket needs about 0.7 cubic feet of potting mix. A 2 cubic foot bag fills roughly 3 buckets. Pour soil in loose, water to settle naturally, then top off. Leave about 2 inches from the rim so water doesn't overflow. Now, grow bags. These are fabric containers with handles that let air reach the roots. This prevents root circling and creates healthier plants with better yields. For balconies, use 3-gallon bags for peppers and 5 gallons for tomatoes. Set the empty bag where you want it first, because once filled with wet soil, it's heavy. Fill halfway, water thoroughly, then fill the rest and water again. This prevents the soil from settling and leaving you with a half-empty bag. Grow bags dry out faster than plastic because they breathe. In peak summer, expect to water daily. That's the trade-off for better yields. Here's what you're actually growing and what it produces. 2 5-gallon buckets of cherry tomato plants give you most of your production, 30 to 40 pounds total. Add 4 pots of succession-planted lettuce for another 15 to 30 pounds. Throw in peppers, herbs, and vertical cucumbers or beans, and you hit 50 to 80 pounds total, depending on your season and sunlight. The key is cherry tomatoes, not slicing varieties. Sun Gold or Sweet Million produce way more in containers. I switched to Sun Gold after my first year growing mediocre slicing tomatoes. It was a total game changer for me. But here's the critical piece. This only works with succession planting. You can't plant all your lettuce on one day in April and expect continuous production. It grows for 3 weeks, you harvest once, then it shoots up a tall flower stalk and stops producing leaves. Done. Plant a new pot every 2 weeks from March through September. That's what creates continuous harvest instead of one batch that's gone in a week. Same with greens and radishes, stagger plantings, constant rotation. That's how a small space becomes high production. And a quick question for you. Do you have a balcony or small space you've been thinking you can't grow food in? Drop a comment and tell me what's stopping you. Now, let's talk vertical space, because this is where most balcony gardeners leave 20 to 30 pounds of production on the table. Your balcony probably has a wall. That wall is wasted space if you're not growing on it. Wall-mounted pocket planters turn vertical space into production. A 4-foot tall pocket planter holds 12 lettuce plants. That's another 6 to 10 pounds from empty air. Cucumbers and pole beans on a trellis use height instead of floor space. One trellis, 4 feet wide and 6 feet tall, supports 3 to 4 cucumber plants, producing 8 to 12 pounds each. You're adding 25 to 40 pounds from vertical space. Hanging containers from the ceiling or railing add cherry tomatoes, strawberries, or herbs without taking floor space. Most people only use the bottom 2 feet of their balcony. Use all 6 or 7 feet of height and you triple your production capacity. Stop for a second. If this sounds complicated, it's because you've been thinking about balcony gardening as a hobby instead of as a production system. Those aren't the same thing. One gets you a tomato plant that produces 12 tomatoes all summer. The other gets you 50 to 80 pounds of food. Now here's the part that makes or breaks production: crop selection. You cannot grow everything on a balcony. You don't have the space. So you grow high-value, high-yield crops that make the limited space worth the effort. Tomatoes are non-negotiable. Cherry varieties like Sungold, Sweet Million, or Black Cherry produce way more than slicing tomatoes in containers. Lettuce and salad greens are perfect for balconies. Fast-growing, expensive at the store, thrive in containers. Loose leaf varieties like Red Sails or Butter Crunch. Succession plant them and you're never buying salad mix again. Herbs are the highest return on investment. A $5 basil plant produces $50 worth over the summer. The same with cilantro, parsley, and thyme. Peppers are compact and productive. Hot peppers especially. One jalapeno plant produces enough for the year. What you don't grow: corn, winter squash, watermelons, anything that takes massive space for low yield. Grow what maximizes production per square foot. Here's what actually destroys balcony gardens: watering. Not pests, not disease. Inconsistent watering. Containers dry out fast, way faster than ground soil, especially in summer on a balcony with sun and wind. If you're not watering daily in peak summer, production crashes. Self-watering containers help. They have a reservoir that wicks water up to roots. You water every 2 to 3 days instead of daily. Brands like Earthbox work well. But honestly, most balcony gardeners end up hand watering daily anyway. It's 5 to 10 minutes every morning. That's the deal for max production. Accept it, make it a quick ritual, and your plants thrive. And if this whole thing falls apart anywhere, it falls apart with watering. Miss 2 days in July, and tomatoes stop setting fruit, lettuce bolts, peppers drop as flowers, production crashes, and you don't recover. You don't need to build this entire system in year 1. Start with 2 buckets in tomatoes. Year 1, learn container tomatoes. Nail the watering. Get 20 to 30 pounds and call it a win. Year 2, add lettuce succession. 4 pots rotated every 2 weeks. Now you're getting tomatoes and continuous solid. Year 3, add vertical space, wall planters, or a trellis. Now you're at 50 to 70 pounds total. Build in stages instead of trying to do everything at once and failing. Here's the shift that makes everything else make sense. A balcony isn't a limitation. It's a controlled environment. You choose exactly what grows there. You can move containers to follow the sun. You're not fighting weeds. You're not dealing with ground pests or deer eating your tomatoes overnight. Balconies are harder in some ways, especially watering. Easier in others. But with the right system, they produce more food per square foot than most backyard gardens because every inch is intentional. A backyard garden might produce 20 pounds of tomatoes from 50 square feet. That's 0.4 pounds per square foot. A balcony system produces 40 pounds from 8 square feet of floor space plus vertical trellises. That's 5 pounds per square foot. Intensity makes up for size.
And once you see a balcony as a vertical production system instead of flat decoration space, you can't unsee it. Every wall becomes growing space. Every railing becomes a planter location. Every cubic foot of air is production capacity. Most balconies are wasted space where people put a chair they never sit in. This one is infrastructure that feeds you. What's your biggest concern about balcony gardening? Watering? Space? Sunlight? Tell me below. I want to know what's actually stopping people from trying this. Now, if you want to see exactly how grow bags work, why they outproduce plastic pots, and which sizes to use for every crop, I break down the complete grow bag system in this video YouTube is suggesting.